Since he taught for 40 years, it said like the people in the back, a lot of them had also taken his class when they were kids. Just him standing there and seeing like all of the different students that he would have had probably would have been emotional to like look
Yeah.
at all these faces that he's known for all of these years, to have this like final like I don't know, huzzah moment of just like, I'm gonna give you everything left. You know? I feel like that is very beautiful.
Welcome back to the Rooted Minds podcast, where we come together as a family to talk about books and our emotions. And in this season, we've been talking through some short stories. And in today's podcast, we'll be talking through The Last Lesson by Alphonse Daudet, French author. So I think it'll be interesting.
Yeah, I'm really excited. And first, we're gonna summarize the story.
Yeah, I just loved this story, but it's about this little French boy in this little French town, and he goes to school one day. There's been a lot of action in the town, and he missed the bulletin board where something was being posted, but he's always running late. He's always just kind of distracted, and he shows up and doesn't get in trouble, and everyone's quiet, and the teacher's dressed really nice, and there are townspeople in the back. And he says, like,
What is going on?
what is going on? Well, it turns out this teacher who's been there for 40 years teaching French, this is his last day because at the time it's the Franco-Prussian War, and they're sending in a German teacher, and German is the only thing that will be taught.
Yes.
And so in the scope of this last lesson, like the people in the back are saying, I wish I would have studied more. And the kids are going, I wish I would have paid attention more. It's like they didn't realize how valuable of a thing they had until now they're not going to be able to have it anymore.
Wow.
And so at the end, the teacher is just like saying thank you for letting him teach this long, but he's also challenging them to not forget. Don't forget your language, because this is the key to freedom. If you can keep your language, you keep who you are. So it was just such a beautiful, and then at the end he writes on the chalkboard in big letters, Vive la France, you know.
Yes. So
Wow.
good. Such a powerful story. And like in regards to this story, I just want to talk about first like the concept of forgetting what's precious. Like what emotion, like we talked a little bit about it, but what emotion do the people feel when they're confronted with their almost culture being taken?
Well, sadness. There's something to grieve there.
Yeah.
And there's this like regret and remorse too, that they were careless with their lessons. Like either they didn't pay enough attention, or they didn't know what they had until it was gone. So they're regretting how they stewarded it before.
Yeah, that's so true.
Wow.
Yeah, and like like what do you think like the author was like trying to reveal in this story?
Well, I do think it reveals like a thing about humanity, and what it means to be human is that we're constantly forgetting things.
Yeah, that's so good.
And in life, in culture, in legacy, we have to keep retelling stories or recalling what it is that makes us us.
Yeah.
And when it comes to something like a language, that's so core to what makes us us. And so it's like one of those tragedies that the author's kind of revealing, of losing sacred things, not through hatred or it being broken, but through neglect.
When I feel this, like as a teacher, you know, like whenever I was trying to impart things to you guys, and you're like, I don't know, and I'm like, but this is valuable. You like whenever you get to be my age, you will appreciate it.
Yeah.
You know, like there's a certain level of I can't make you want it. You know, and something like it being taken away all of a sudden makes you realize what you actually want.
Yeah.
Exactly. You like didn't realize what you had until it's gone.
Yeah. And that's a super biblical thing, like the concept of preserving something that's sacred through remembrance.
Yeah,
and so it feels like, you know, they're just coming to the realization that they just hadn't carried that value of remembrance as much as they wanted to, because now you can see how quickly it could slip away, especially in the presence of being like required to learn a different language in the place of one language. That can make a language and the work that you did slip away pretty quickly.
Wow.
It makes me think some too about how, like, as an analogy, like if you hiked up to a really high up really high, like up on a mountain, there's the amount of oxygen that you have up there is much less, and so you realize that you can't breathe as well. You have less of something you had in abundance before.
Wow, that's so good.
Or water is the same way. If you suddenly find yourself in a place that is scarce, water is scarce, and you start to realize, I'm thirsty. I'm real thirsty.
It's so true. It's so true.
Yeah.
So
I think too, like, there's just a level of, like, I think this story captures the beauty of, like, the importance of almost like culture and keeping your traditions alive and keeping what makes your specific culture beautiful and what like what makes you as a people group unique. And there's a beauty to that, and this like colonization in a sense is like he's touching on a grief of what that actually does to a people, and how like when you force a different culture on top of another one and say this is all you can use now, there's like a stunting of something that they were born into, and like, you know what I mean, like, I don't know.
And it does take a certain level of maturity to realize what's happening in that moment. Like the children probably, like, they might be like, oh, like French is my language, like French are my people, and German's new. Okay, like I guess this is the way things are. But for the teacher, for the townspeople, for the elders of the community to come and say, we need to take this day seriously and like value this. I think that's a really cool picture of even just like the generational community helping one another.
Well, and like Hitler, one of his things was not so much propaganda to the older people, it was infiltrating the schools. You teach the children, you gain a whole generation.
Yeah.
And you see that played out here, both in like targeting the school, but also like how the older people responded to it. It felt like a different kind of attack because it's their heart language.
Absolutely. And it's crazy that, language is one of the things that comes under attack the quickest in wartime. And I think the old men and the elders showing up there in that time, and the teacher writing Viva la France on the board, was like an act of defiance against their language and their culture being rooted out in the place of war.
Yeah, and in a way, like, I feel like when somebody can speak multiple languages, every time when you interact with that person, their heart language, like their first language, will always be the one that they're have the most humor in, have the most, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, there's something about like your heart language, your first language, that carries something beautiful and something sacred.
It's interesting that we call it that.
Yeah.
In this context, it makes more sense.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I feel like the language of a people really does carry their culture and their soul and their identity in a sense. And but like, how does H. Hamel, which is the teacher, change in this story?
Well, teachers are, I mean, it's like he's taught for 40 years.
Yeah.
And now he's showing up in a way that is like new and different, or feels new and different because he's not getting upset. He's dressed in his finest, but there's like a legacy that he carries that has such value to this town.
Yeah.
That's precious.
And he may be one, as the other older people in the room, that really recognized the gravity of this assimilation that was the Germans were trying to push on them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
He probably knew the best. Like,
yeah,
as the language
probably
teacher.
knew the best. Yeah, that's true.
I wonder if he was like, I don't remember if I mentioned this in the story, but if he was being forced to go somewhere, or like what was his life looking like after having to step down as a teacher, you know, and that I mean, I'm sure that carried a whole lot of grief, especially as someone who's devoted so much time of their life to a cause, you know, to be forced out of that place, out of your personal mission, you know, and purpose. That's that's a lot to stomach.
That's
you know?
so true.
Well, especially if, like, whenever he's leaving, he says, protect what gives you identity before you realize how much it held you together. Like, he sees himself as an identity, like, speaker, because he's giving them language. He's giving them ability to articulate what they think, communicate ideas through language.
Yeah.
Like, he's imparting identity, and now he's saying, I'm not gonna be with you anymore.
Yeah.
Remember.
Really is
That feels very biblical.
Yeah,
It does.
That's a big part of the sense of belonging that we have. When we can speak the same language to each other in the same way and using the same references and understanding the same vocabulary and all of that stuff, then I'm connected to you. Like, I can really understand you and you can understand me, and I feel like I fit, you know.
And I know who I am then.
I know who I am now. So this teacher was doing that, giving them that kind of culture atmosphere that they could find belonging in.
And I think it was also cool because, like, since he taught for 40 years, it said, like, the people in the back, a lot of them had also taken his class when they were kids.
Yes.
And so I think there is, like, a level of just him standing there and seeing, like, all of the different students that he would have had probably would have been emotional to, like, look at all these faces that he's known for all of these years and poured into, to have this, like, final, like, I don't know, huzzah moment of just, like, I'm gonna give you everything left, you know? I feel like that is very beautiful. But, like, what do you feel like the last lesson teaches us as a whole about culture and language?
Well, I feel like there's so much, like, depth to this story, and just like this town feels like they're being invaded. You know, it's like a something is happening to them, and they're having to ask the question, so how are we going to respond? and I feel like the way that the author is writing this with language just says, you know, like, protect, preserve, you know, this is, it's valuable. I mean, it has so much more value to us than we think. And so it just makes me think of, like, ways that maybe American culture has, like, devalued heart languages. Why don't they just speak English? You know?
Right.
It feels like an invasion of their inheritance. It feels like an invasion or a indictment against their identity. Why don't we just learn other languages?
Yeah.
You know?
Wow.
Because when you say, why don't they just speak English, you're basically saying you don't fit here unless you do.
Yes.
Wow.
You're speaking identity.
Yes.
Wow.
You don't belong. And that doesn't feel like the heart of the gospel, for one.
Wow.
The diversity that he
Yeah.
placed in all of us.
Every tribe and every tongue.
Absolutely. And I think even in American culture, there's like a devaluation of just preservation in general, and just the specifically like the preservation of like memory in that sort of sense, since there's so many things leaning more and more towards the practical, and like we expend and then it's gone, you know, and then we don't have to, you know, we move on to the next thing.
Or, like, even just, like, in American architecture, you can tell the difference of value between, like in France.
Utilitarian versus beauty.
Yes.
Sure.
There's, you don't see, like, I mean, suppose we haven't been here that long, but, like, you don't see, like, 100-year-old buildings just
No.
dispersed. You know what I mean?
And
Not as often in Texas.
True.
That's certainly not Texas.
Other places maybe more than here, but yeah.
Yeah, it's super interesting. And just I feel like that connection of language and memory and preservation and just that message that this author is trying to convey, like it all goes into just value and purpose and identity.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it really says something meaningful about like our faith as well.
Mm-hmm.
And like this as like a spiritual analogy almost. You know, I just keep thinking of like places in the Bible where God is like, you know, set up these stones so that the generations can remember, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, when God asks you to remember, he's not saying that like the past was better than it is now or better than it's going to be, you know. But what it is saying is it's referring to like a faithfulness. It's referring to like a connectedness and identity and belonging, you know, that you want to carry with you into the better future.
Wow.
You know, and so I think that's like what they're trying to preserve here, you know, is that identity and belonging and faithfulness to a people, you know, into what they're all hoping and believing to be a better future despite the war.
Nice.
Wow.
That's well said. Yeah.
That's so good.
Yeah. Well, so many good thoughts in this story. This is certainly an interesting one and very interesting thoughts about like language and the way that it connects to culture and identity and belonging. We would love to hear your thoughts, so share them in the comments, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks again for joining us on the Rooted Minds podcast. If you're enjoying the kinds of discussions we're having, consider joining our learning community, where we teach the arts and have many more discussions like these. But until next time, may you find joy, grace, and peace in the pages you turn.